Running. What a concept.
Yep.
There we go.
Hey. I mean, it's so quiet that I don't necessarily it bother me, but I don't know if it's going to show up on the live feed. I mean, show up to the audience.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's easy enough to test. All right, talk.
So yeah, I mean, I'm hearing myself a little bit, but it's very quiet, and it almost sounds like it's coming from your headphones or something. I'm hearing myself a little bit, but it's very quiet, and it almost sounds like it's coming from your headphones or something.
I wonder. Oh, you know what? I think. Nope, that's not how that works. I wonder. Oh, you know what? I think. Nope, that's not how that works. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's that. All right, try it again.
So anyway, let's see if you can hear me now.
All right, try
Yeah,
it
I
again.
hear the echo still. So anyway, let's see if you can hear me now. Yeah, I hear the echo still. So,
Huh. This is gonna be one of those nights.
yeah, I mean, I'm okay. It's not that bad. I just don't know if it's
It's coming.
something that's
It's
going to be
coming to the
annoying to the
audience.
audience. Yeah. I mean, I'm okay. It's not that bad. I just don't know if it's
It's coming.
something that's
It's
going to be
coming to the
annoying to the
audience.
audience. Yeah.
So that didn't solve it. There's always the possibility that what I just did was affected by this. All right. Do one more try.
One more try. I don't hear you now, though. Do you hear me? I don't hear you or me. I don't hear anything. I'm completely hearing nothing.
Okay. Well, you shouldn't have been hearing me. I muted myself. And that did
Oh,
seem
okay.
to fix it.
Okay. Well, you shouldn't have been hearing me. I muted. So somehow maybe the sound is leaking to your microphone.
Maybe. Okay. That means I have to record audio locally, and people watching live are going to get a slight repeat. And I will work this out this week.
Okay.
All right. How are you doing, bud?
Oh, not bad. Have the I have the house to myself right now, so I'm don't have to
Interesting.
put any kids to bed tonight. So I'm in you know gonna stay up late doing whatever I want. Mm.
That's funny.
Well,
Okay. That. Am I just really loud?
you're a little loud, but I don't know if that's just my volume.
'Cause I was hearing myself typing. You know what? There's a delay on myself. Why is there a delay on myself? There we go. Okay, that got rid of the delay. But now I can't hear you, I bet. Okay.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
No.
Can you
Oh,
hear
I
me
see.
now?
Okay, I want to hear that one. Go ahead and talk.
Okay, so I'm talking, and I'm
That's
talking quite a bit.
That's how my head's supposed to work.
That's how your head's supposed to work?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't hear the echo.
Yeah, I was monitoring the wrong channel. I was monitoring me, not you.
Oh, okay. Very good.
As soon as I realized I was hearing myself on a delay in my own headphones, I'm like, oh, okay, something's wrong. I've definitely screwed something up. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right. Hooray. I'm still going to record audio locally. Oh. I have to set up recording locally. I don't know how much information you got about what happened last week. And for anybody who's watching live...
No, you just said there was a problem.
Yeah, for anybody who's watching live, this is going to be a fun story. The computer started to blue screen.
Yes, you told me a blue screen.
Just before the show, and so it turned out that something had made probably some sort of an arc between the motherboard and the case. Mm-hmm. We think it was when we were redoing the studio for CES. We must have pulled a cable that screwed with the video card that pushed the motherboard to the case. The thing, we blew out both the video card and the motherboard. So before CES started, we had to fix that, and then did a refresh on the operating system as well, which means everything is new, and I have no idea what I'm looking at anymore. So, but that's okay. All right. I think all of that is ready. What are we doing for Pilch Point tonight?
I know it's been a couple weeks, but we haven't had a show since CES, right?
Correct.
So I thought I would talk about some of the more interesting things that we saw at CES. And I'm not even going to just say the best of CES, because one thing I really want to talk about is no way the best. Okay. I want to talk about the air cleanse, for example. Okay. Do you know what the air cleanse is?
I think so.
If not, I will leave you and the audience in suspense.
That's the best way to do it.
About the air cleanse, when it, there's the, just some of the more interesting stuff that we saw at CES. I don't know if the air cleanse is worth a whole segment, but I will certainly rant about it.
Sure.
And
I've got a couple of interesting things from our interviews to throw in. So,
great. So yeah,
cool. Sounds good. Oh, I didn't actually want to do that. Stop it. All right. Well, with that, see, now I don't trust that I'm actually doing this right.
I also know my topic from February 27th, so you can write it down. Raspberry Pi 10th anniversary is February 28th.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. I'm ready to hit record here. I'm recording there. All right. I had to redo my Stream Deck. Everything's different, and it's driving me mad.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Oh, all right. Here we go. This week, Android is killing 2G, Sony is maintaining the PlayStation 4, and the CW is looking for a buyer. It's Sunday, January 16th, 2022, and this is episode 615 of F5 Live Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options. Through our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, or YouTube, or on our website, plugkitslive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you'll see, you'll be able to chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you're not able to join us live, that's okay as well. You can always go to plugkitslive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, The Pilch Point, Plug Hits Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you can find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. All right. It is good to be back, Avram. For the people who were watching live ahead of time, you heard our story of what happened here in the studio, where everything collapsed hours before the show, before CES, which delayed our return this year. But we're back. We're back. Hooray.
Hey.
So how was your, we haven't talked at all. How was your new year? How's everything been going?
Quiet, very quiet. We are not going out of the house much these days.
Yeah.
So, it's been very, very quiet. Big tech news in my office, my home office here, is that I bought a new mouse for myself this week.
Okay.
And this is a very fancy mouse. This is the Logitech MX Master 3. So are you familiar with this one?
Alante's got one upstairs.
Oh, great. So a lot of people, recommended this, and I've been using the same Logitech M510 $25 mouse for like 10 years. Although I think I replaced it at one point, but it was the same exact thing. And I liked it a lot, but I wanted to, up my mouse game a little bit. So I got this thing, and it's pretty neat. What's really cool about, I wish it had more buttons. The side buttons on it actually aren't as good as the cheaper mouse because they're a little bit harder to click. And it has a button here that doesn't really do much, and it's hard to press. But it has, camera's not angling right. Okay, it has a side wheel, which is pretty cool, which you can configure to do different things. I have it zoom in, zoom out in my browser. The scroll wheel has two modes. It's either ratchet or like smooth, and it will automatically turn smooth if you are scrolling fast enough. But if that's not good for you, you can just hit this button here and you can change the mode. The other, it's good. I think there's room for improvement on things like the buttons. The other thing that is good but room for improvement is this can do 3 devices, the 2 Bluetooth profiles plus the dongle it comes with. But in order to switch them, you have to hit this button on the bottom. So it's on the bottom. So if you were, doing it a lot, that would be kind of annoying. And that's one of the things I wanted it for. But on the other hand, they have a model where it's on the top, but it has no other features. So I said, how often am I doing this switch back and forth thing? Or would I want to do the switch back and forth thing? Not enough to make it more of a priority than other stuff, but it would be much better if you could, if you're doing something rapidly. Like I have my laptop over there, and I have my desktop here, and my keyboard can actually do a quick switch. My keyboard supports 3 Bluetooth profiles, a 2.4 gigahertz, and wired modes. And it's like a second to switch them. So the keyboard can do it. So I wanted to say, hey, I'll have a mouse that can do it too. So that now if I want to just like do something on my laptop, I can do it without moving over and touching and typing on it. So that's
I just use mouse without borders for that.
Now there is a Logitech software supposedly will do something like that automatically. Like you can treat somehow you can treat the other computer. I guess they have to both be Windows or whatever, but you can treat your laptop. My laptop, for example, could act like if I'm dragging the mouse and I drag it off of the screen, it'll just drag onto there.
Yeah.
So that might be the way to go. Yeah, I'm not sure.
So interestingly, I had an MX Max, the first one, which I loved, but eventually I wore it out, and I got a 2, and it ended up screwing up my hand. Now, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with the 3, but I ended up having to wear a brace on my hand for a while, and I abandoned that mouse. So,
boy,
just throwing that out there, I abandoned it and went back to my Razer mouse at my desk.
Oh, well, so far, my understanding is the ergonomics of them are very similar, but I almost got the 2S, which is a lot cheaper. The 2S is $55 and the 3 is $100.
Right.
But the reason I really wanted to get the 3 is because the buttons are here, whereas on the 2S and the original, the buttons are next to the wheel, and they're on top of each other, which seems a little bit like it would be hard to feel around. So I wanted them next to each other. They still don't have as good of a click feel as they should, but it's easy to find them. I haven't felt any wrist pain or anything.
For me, it was almost a year before it happened.
Okay, I'll keep the eye out.
Yeah,
I want to say that I'm very studious about having gel rests on my mouse pad and my keyboard. I can't live without them. So I hope that I hope that helps. It hasn't felt uncomfortable to me, but it is more a higher grip than what I had been used to. So we'll have.
And I think maybe that was part of my problem is I had been using my Razer mouse for so long, and my goal was exactly the same as yours. I had my personal computer and then my work computer, and I wanted to be able to switch the mouse back and forth, and I ended up going with a KVM switch to be able to do it. But yeah, I got that mouse for that purpose, to be able to do the switching between the computers, and I went back.
Logitech has another one.
That could be me. That could be my my own oddities. I'm not trying to throw them under the bus, because again, I loved my MX Max the first gen. I still have it. I killed it, but I still have it.
Well, Logitech makes another mouse that does, I forget what it's called, the Marathon or something, where it's completely shaped differently, and the switcher button is on the top. And I thought of getting that, but I was like, but I want to have all these other extra features like the side wheel, and I couldn't get that. So I don't know. I really just wanted to change things up, and there's like 3 things. I'll just leave it with this and we can get started. There's 3 things that if you get an upgrade to them, are going to really change your computer life, and you're going to notice it right away. Your monitor, your keyboard, and your mouse. Yeah. So, I recently changed my keyboard last year. Late 2020, I changed my monitor setup. So I thought, hey, this could be a good time to change my mouse. So anyway.
Yeah, I can say I am a fan of it. I love the mouse. I just wish that it wasn't screwing with my hand. I'd love to go back to my first gen that didn't do it and see if it worked. But again, it doesn't work anymore.
Borrow Alante's.
True. It would be interesting to see. But we've got a lot of news to talk about tonight. We've been off for a while, so let's get down to business. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, desperately seeking an Xbox, new games, or a whole lot more. You can get them at the Microsoft Store. And remember that current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off of almost anything. And to browse the products, to see deals that are going on, to learn about the discount, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So they're making a bigger deal. Just this isn't part of our topic, but they're making a bigger deal about the discount. I was looking for a Surface Pen yesterday, and I saw they're like, "Hey, do you want to see if you qualify for a student, faculty, or military discount?" No, because I'm not going to, but I appreciate that you're making a bigger deal about it. Anyway, not talking about new technology, which we just were. Let's talk about some old technology, in particular, 2G. In the U.S., 2G began its end of life in 2003 with the release when Sprint started to transition to 3G. So that's almost 20 years ago. But phones aren't quite aware of that big difference, partially because most phone models are sold across the world, right? Very few of them are destined just for the United States or just for the big European countries. They go to a lot of places, some of which still use 2G. But the problem is 2G, just like using older style WEP secured Wi-Fi router or something, the security is antiquated. It has long been broken. It is easy to get around. The encryption between devices and towers is not great in modern comparison. And so there's become a big problem where somebody will set up a fake 2G cell tower and then jam 3, 4, and 5G. Your phone goes looking for 2G, jumps onto this thing, and then it can start packet sniffing because the encryption's not great, get information. Now, is it common? No, but it is becoming more common in more high-risk places. Washington, D.C., for example. And so Android and Android 12 released a new feature, which is a kill switch. You can go in and tell your device, do not look for 2G networks anymore. So if you're in the United States or the United Kingdom or, somewhere like that, where 2G has been off for a very long time, we're in the process of shutting down 3G in the United States right now. If you're in a place where 2G doesn't exist, turn it off. It's going to save your battery in places where your reception goes weird, because we all know it is other than sitting there with the screen on watching something. I think we all know that searching for 2G networks is one of the hardest things on a battery, because we've all felt our phone get hot in our pockets. So the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is never what I think EFF stands for, because it definitely seems like that first F should be freedom, and it isn't. They have obviously praised Google for including this in Android, and they are trying to get Apple to follow suit. I think it's an easy thing to implement, and it seems like a smart thing with these attacks happening more frequently. What do you think, Abram?
So they have the option to turn it off, or it's off by it's off by default, or it's off whether you like it or not.
So right now, by default, it is on, but the option is in Android 12 and above to turn it off, because some countries do still need 2G support. Hopefully at some point, or maybe even the carriers will implement an auto switch. If you buy your phone from AT&T, they know you're a US user and they'll turn it off by default, perhaps. But right now it is off. If you're in a country where 2G is long dead, turn it on. Turn that feature on. Get rid of the 2G.
So here's something that's just a little aside. So this month is the 15th anniversary of the original iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And the original iPhone was 2G.
Yes,
it ran, I think it used Edge. So There, so there you go. If you if you have an original iPhone, can it even get online
I mean, with
without? I
Wi-Fi,
mean, not Wi-Fi, not with
that's
Wi-Fi. I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
cellular,
No,
with
it cannot.
cellular.
Not in the United States, it cannot.
Huh?
Because the 2G towers are long dead. And in fact, when the first iPhone came out, people were already upset that it didn't support 3G because 2G was already not the thing.
Yeah, I remember. I remember. So funny story when one of the when I the first year I was working for Laptop Mag was right after iPhone had come out,
Okay.
and we did a really wacky story where this don't try this at home, folks. Where a friend of one of our coworkers, friend of Kenneth's, actually, if you remember him, uh, had apparently gone jumped onto the subway tracks to retrieve his iPhone, and
Oh no.
which I mean he made it, but like we were talking about about what a bad idea that is. And so we interviewed this guy and like asked him, why did you do it? Was it worth risking your life? And like somebody did an article on like, you know, would you risk your life for your iPhone? And I think one of the points was not no because it's 2G. So so anyway,
Okay, that's
no
hilarious.
because you should no because there's a 3G model coming and it's not worth risking your life for 2G internet speeds. But
And,
any,
and that
any
was and that was 15 years ago.
yes, yes. So anyway, it was a very bad idea that his friend did that. In fact,
Of course.
I can't name the person, but a few years later, he came back to us and he's like, "Could you please erase the story from your website because it's embarrassing when people Google me and find that my I dropped my phone on the subway tracks and then went down to get it." So anyway,
Okay,
PSA: if you
that's
drop
pretty
your
funny.
phone on the subway tracks, ask the go to the go to the booth and ask them to get it for you. And if they can't or it gets run over, then I'm sorry, but it's not worth even even the latest even the latest Galaxy Fold is not worth your life.
For sure. Um, that was a fascinating aside. But to talk about the actual security of 2G and this particular problem, while it sounds like it might be an obscure one, I can tell you for sure that it's not, because when I was with Radio Shack, there was a kiosk in the mall who was doing this, and this was 15 years ago, 10, at least 10. There was a kiosk in the mall that had a fake 2G repeater, and since inside the mall, like most malls, reception was questionable at best.
So why they do it?
I guess they were trying to get call information.
Oh,
They
so it was malicious. It was
Oh,
it was
absolutely, 100% malicious. They got
it was
arrested.
they weren't trying to do it for a business purpose.
No, they got arrested and everything. It was a huge thing. So this scam's been around for a long time, and now that the technology is gone in most of the West, it's definitely good to have this feature. I think Apple should follow suit. I think this should be in the next version of iOS for sure, to be able to turn radios off. That's You can turn off all data as a whole. Turning off certain spectrums seems like it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, we have it going the other way, right? A lot of times with my Pixel 4a 5G, the 5 T-Mobile 5G is not very good. And
Mm-hmm.
so, at least where I live, it's not. So, very often I find that when it connects to 5G, I get a slower signal than when it connects to LTE. So
Mm,
I've gone in and set it to only connect to 4G.
okay.
So you can drop from 5 to 4. Why shouldn't you be able to disable 2?
Agreed. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I think it was a smart move on Google's part. Good on them. Obviously, uh, obviously you don't hear me make a whole lot of huge positive overtures in Google's direction, but I but I think in this particular case, it's 100% warranted. I think it's the right move, and they should be applauded for it, and Apple should be encouraged to follow suit. The good news is that the EFF has made it real easy to, for lack of a better term, bully them a little bit. We have a link on the website at plughitslive.com under the upstream. All you have to do is click the link and it'll open Twitter with a message tagging Apple and the whole 9 yards, and you can just hit tweet. Seems like a good move to protect everybody, especially when you consider that it is completely worthless, and at the very least it'll save your battery if you're in a really terrible signal area, you're in an elevator or something. This will save your battery significantly because, like I said, we've all been there. This week's Pilch Point with Avram Pilch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right. Interestingly, Avram, that also would solve the problem with with the 2G topic, is if you were using a VPN, it would encrypt it on a whole different level. Anyway,
How slow would your connection be if it were both over 2G and having to pass through a VPN?
Yeah, it wouldn't be great, is my guess.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to simulate dialing up on a dial-up modem, I guess that would be one way.
Almost certainly. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so CES. I know it's been a little while since we've had some technical issues and all kinds of other things, but CES was our last big thing.
Yes. So obviously, this was a very sad year.
Mm-hmm.
We were both supposed to go in
Yep.
person, and you couldn't go, and I couldn't go. Our teams. Did you? Any of members of your team go?
So we had Geek News Central, GNC Week in Review, Talking Sound, and the Tech Ranch all out there, but nobody from the Plug Hits team was there.
It was. We were sad not to go. Our parent company, made the decision a few weeks ago, but also given the fact that most of the companies that we interact with weren't going,
Yeah.
it wasn't really worth it. That being said, we had a freelancer who was going there because of Samsung. He runs a YouTube channel about Samsung stuff.
Okay.
And so he went and he did some photo and video for us.
Nice.
So he did get to see some things. So that was pretty neat. So we covered the best of CES remotely, but I want to point out not just the best of CES, but the most interesting of CES, because I always tell my writers, we are in the business of interesting, not necessarily the business of good.
Absolutely.
So I will cover things that are interesting, and people will say, "Oh, but I wouldn't buy that." I said, "I'm not telling you to buy it. I'm telling you that it's interesting." So we could talk about what's good, but I'd like to start by talking about some things that are interesting. So there was a really, this year, obviously, second year of CES during a pandemic. And so there were definitely some companies trying to sell or talking about air purification or protective technologies. And I got a pitch from this small company named Air Cleanse. And Air Cleanse wants to put a filter, a HEPA filter into your monitor. They want it so that when you exhale, your breath will hit the monitor and the monitor will suck in your germs and spit out germless air. Now, the company doesn't actually was at the Showstoppers show, which is a nighttime show in CES, and they showed some prototypes that they've made, but they don't make monitors. They don't make air filters. They just want to license the idea of putting an air filter into a monitor. And I had a briefing with them before the show, and we talked, and they said, yeah, we can put in however many fans, whatever. We're looking for a partner. We're looking, they're hoping to find a company like ViewSonic or LG or Dell or whoever makes monitors and license them the IP, the idea basically of putting in your monitor. And they demoed their monitors, which they just had taken off the shelf monitors and put HEPA filters and 6 fans into them. But I want to show you just a screen share of what you see on their website. So here's their website where they sort of show you, here's a mock-up of what the monitor would look like. So really, it's just like it's got a bezel around it, and then the bezel sucks in the air that's coming from your mouth, the particles that are coming from your mouth, and then spits it out the back. They also want to be able to do the same thing with this docking station for your laptop. And then they don't want to talk about this too much, but they also have some ideas of maybe how you would do the same thing in a classroom by putting a giant box around your laptop or in the school cafeteria. And so what do you think of this? Before I tell you what I think and what I've learned when I actually interviewed a real aerosol scientist about it, what do you think of this idea?
Oh, I don't think you want to know what I think.
I'm going to also pull up our article where we have real pictures of it, because their website doesn't have actual pictures. It's just all mocks, right?
Okay.
But we got the guy, our freelancer, to go by their booth. So he actually got real photos of their demo. And you can see the back here. It has six fans, which I think are all 70 CFM. So anyway, I spoke to, like I said, we're in the business of interesting, not the business of good. I don't think this is in the sense that people put air purifiers on their desks, and if you wanted to save space by putting the air purifier into something else that's on your desk, like the monitor, I guess that could be useful. But their claim, let me see if I can find the picture that they had. So here's the picture that they show where to sort of demo. I don't know why this picture a little bit cracks me up, because it looks like the person is hurling all over the monitor screen.
I was taking a drink just as you scrolled that into view, and I almost spit it out, because that's absolutely what it looks like.
I mean, it kind of looks. I don't know. This is their idea, but it to me it sort of looks like, I don't know, that scene in Stand By Me where all the kids in the cafeteria are just vomiting. But it's not supposed to be vomit. It's supposed to be exhaled particles, and so they hit the monitor, and indeed the monitor sucks them in. Now, there's some inherent problems with this. One is people do not sit at their desk and stare straight ahead at the monitor all day.
Very true.
And they know this. And they know this. And they said, well, this is just kind of incrementally helps. It may not even be necessarily a solution. If people are going back to the office and they don't want to wear masks, this will be in the conversation, but it won't necessarily replace masking. And the other thing, though, is I talked to Aaron Collins, who is an aerosol scientist who runs a fantastic YouTube channel. I highly recommend his channel, where he actually goes and does benchmarks on masks. And he said he didn't see that any of the information that they published, any information that showed that this would actually work, although they did pay a company to do a computer simulation saying that this could work. But he also said, there's a certain amount of buoyancy in your exhaled particles. So unless the fans were really, really strong, there's a good chance that a lot of the germs would end up somewhere floating between your mouth and the monitor. And of course, that's not even taking into account the fact that you don't look straight, 90 degrees or whatever ahead at your monitor all day long. So
how about the fact that we have all trained ourselves at this point to not cough, sneeze, whatever at our monitors so that they don't get sticky and gross?
Yeah, that's kind of a good point too. I mean, we don't we don't invite people to cough on your monitor. Plus, if it gets on the monitor screen, like, we're not worried about the monitor screen. The monitor can't get sick. We're worried about the people in the office. And so,
yeah, it's basically everything around the monitor that matters.
Yeah. So, like I said, an interesting idea. At the same time, I saw yet another demo from Ubitech, where they were showing off they have a robot that uses ultraviolet light to clean offices and classrooms, and they now have it as an autonomous robot, and it'll go around and shine ultraviolet light. I mean, that's another thing that I would say is a little bit. I mean, the science behind that is more solid, although there's a lot of people who say what people really need to worry about is what's in the air, not necessarily sterilizing surfaces. But like I said, interesting, particularly during the same time period where Razer got slapped because they were saying that the Zephyr, which I showed on a previous Pilch Point, had N95 style filters, and they really couldn't, and people felt that claim was kind of misleading. And so they have now put up a disclaimer saying, oh, this isn't, we didn't really mean that this is designed to protect you from COVID. Although why you would wear it just for the fashion statement and not to protect yourself from COVID is a good question. Speaking of fashion statements, here's another thing we saw that I thought was pretty cool. This is a holographic PC case. So it is actually an NZXT case, but this company, Showcase PC, is taking it and they're putting an LED 3D fan. So the way that these things work is, and you can see some pictures here of, like, it actually has both hologram on the panel. You can get one where it's just on the side panel, and or a second one where it's also on the top. But what's kind of cool is if you look at how it is. It's these devices have been out for a few years now, but never put into a PC case before.
Right.
It's a fan, and the blade spins around really fast, creating, and it has lights on it, and that creates the illusion of a 3D hologram. And there have been a lot of those used in retail for advertising. You can actually buy a standalone holographic fan on Amazon for like $150.
Mm-hmm.
I see these days,
There's a
but
there's a company
Showcase
there's a
PC is
company
putting it in.
that we interviewed at CES 2017, and then again this year, named Kono, Kono. Our interview will be up with them. They popularized the big ones in Japan a couple of years ago, and it's the exact same technology. And we'll have videos this year showing both of these things in action, because we
So
actually had interviews with both of them.
yeah, I mean the holograms do look pretty cool. Our picture
They
doesn't
do.
do it justice, and you can put anything, pretty much any animation you want on there, so it doesn't have to be that guy's face. Uh, so here, I just wanted to point out real quick our list of things. Those two things, the hologram and the air cleanse, were interesting, and I'll say the hologram was actually good, but they didn't quite make our list of best of this show. So a couple of things that did, I want to point out, are the new Intel Alder Lake chips. We've seen new Alder Lake desktop chips in the fall, but now Alder Lake is coming to laptops, which means you now have laptops which have a mix of performance cores and efficiency cores, which means that they can save power, give you longer battery life while giving you better performance. AMD announced that they're coming out with a new chip that has integrated graphics built in. That's going to be their fastest integrated graphics chip, the Ryzen 6000. And skipping ahead for a sec, Lenovo had several interesting things. And we actually did get to see Lenovo in person, because instead of going to CES, they came to New York and they had small press briefings. So we went and saw them, got some hands-on time with new products. This is the new ThinkPad Z Series, which looks pretty cool. It uses AMD processors. It has a vegan leather lid cover. It has a haptic touchpad, and
Wow.
it's got a new bold design. Although, oh, and it has another neat new feature where if you tap on the track point pointing stick, it'll bring up a conferencing menu. Previously, pressing the pointing stick didn't do anything, but they've changed the mechanics so that now it can bring up that software. I don't think the software that it brings up is that exciting, but the idea that you could tap on the pointing stick is pretty, and make it do something new, is pretty cool. Not, I should say, finally, not on this list is the ThinkBook Plus. The ThinkBook Plus Gen 3, I should show that, has a screen integrated into the deck, an 8-inch display. So we've seen secondary displays attempted before, but never quite like this. It 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 works really well. You can use it either to zoom in on part of the screen, as you can see in this picture where there was Adobe Lightroom and you're sort of zoomed in on a piece of it, or you can use it to show your tools for something, for like an Adobe thing, or you can use it as what they call waterfall mode, which means if you're looking at a spreadsheet or something, or a web page and it's really long, you can make it the vertical of the page, of the content, continue on the second screen. It is
Oh.
a touch screen. You can draw on it. You can turn it into a calculator. You can use it to quick launch apps, and it's it's a really cool concept. It's coming only to this laptop, the ThinkBook, not ThinkPad, the ThinkBook, uh, which ThinkBook is their sort of alternative business laptop line, which doesn't have the same cool keyboard and pointing stick as ThinkPad, but it's kind of a neat concept, and very interesting. But there was a lot to talk about with CES, and so I will just say that check out our Best of CES 2022 coverage on Tom's Hardware to see more.
Yeah, that's okay. So the Lenovo thing is interesting because Alanta and I watched the. I want to say it was Asus. Who does ROG?
Asus.
Okay, haha. We we watched their pre-CES press conference, and they showed a laptop that had something similar, but up at the top, which was it felt a little touch bar-y, but not really, only because
Right.
it was huge. And it's so far away. Where this is, I can totally see, and I'm thinking Alante in particular, I can totally see Alante using that as a drawing pad. The bigger
Oh,
screen up
the other
top
thing,
and drawing pad on the side. Oh,
yeah,
he'd lose it for that.
yeah, yeah, you could do that. The other thing that's interesting is that pen has a Pantone scanner in it. So if you see a color
Oh,
that you like, you can scan the color, and it'll get scanned into your screen. So this is definitely made for creative professionals. I
yeah.
just wish that they had done it as a ThinkPad, because the ThinkBook keyboard just isn't nearly as good. But nevertheless, it's an interesting concept, and I think they're more willing to take risks on the ThinkBook brand than the ThinkPad brand. So,
Yeah.
so that's why you're seeing this there. But it is neat. I mean, we've seen many attempts at second screens, including Asus having some in the touchpad, right, where the
Oh,
touchpad
yeah.
could be a second screen. But here, it's not taking the place of your touchpad, although I
Mhm.
guess you could make it take the place of your numpad if you want, because there's no numpad, and I think there's a calculator, and I think there may be a numpad function for it also. But I mean, there's a lot that you can do with it. It seems like it's actually highly functional, and I think the location of it is good. And
Yeah.
obviously, for me, the dream would be to have a full size screen that kind of slips out the side of the lid.
Uh-huh.
And we have seen some attempts to do that by third
Yeah.
party vendors, but they are all very, very clumsy. Like, you stick it on the back. So I so this is probably the best, most practical laptop second screen that I've seen.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting that you mentioned the other style because I got pitched a new one of those during CES this year. Uh, but yeah, that's a lot of interesting stuff. We also had an interesting collection of things. One of my favorites was a company called Luma Lore, which is essentially an electroluminescent film or paint that can. They've got big plans for like safety type things, helmets and bikes and scooters and motorcycles, so it can actually be illuminated, but not with LEDs and it's really interesting technology. And he shows it off on the interview, which is on the website. But I can also see it for branding and stuff once they get down the idea of changing colors, which they're working on now. They've got two colors and they're very similar currently, but their focus is currently on safety stuff, and these are the colors that you would want for safety. But so there was a company, number 33. So it's interesting. I know a lot of our interviews by their position in our show. This is, I don't know if you saw this. It's a product called On to Cook, ON the number 2 and then the word cook. For anybody who is a fan of 30 Rock, the show opens with Jack Donaghy talking about the Trivection oven. These guys made it. It is absolutely the concept from 30 Rock, which I find fascinating. But I think they said you can do rice in like 3 minutes. in this thing without it losing its texture like it would if you were trying to do something in the microwave and all of that. And it's countertop. It's a fairly small device that you could do a whole meal in. It's really cool. Todd from Geek News Central said that I think it ended this way. That it was his favorite product of the show.
That is interesting. I am such a non-cook that I can't conceive of that, how that would help me. But although cooking rice in 3 minutes sounds pretty good,
right? Without it getting like gross the way it does if you try and do that, microwave rice or something like that. It gets all
nothing. It's funny, how long has the microwave been around? The microwave's been around since what? At least the 60s, right? I mean,
I think so. It certainly gained popularity in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, 80s is when my family got our first microwave.
Me too.
But I mean, it's right. This is some old technology. When is somebody going to come out with something that beats it?
This, honestly, based on what I know about it, and from Todd going and doing some research, and I've been on their website a lot, this might be it. It's a cool device. It basically can replace an air fryer and a little desktop or countertop convection oven and a microwave, all in this thing that looks like a big waffle iron from the outside.
Well, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah,
I would love to see. It's probably just science fiction, but I would love to see somebody create a reverse microwave. But I guess that's not physically possible.
Got to tell me what we're talking about, because you can't possibly be talking about cooking what's outside the microwave.
No. I mean, like a reverse microwave that you put something in for a minute and it freezes. Like instead of heating, it cools.
Okay, so I got a pitch for a countertop. I don't know if it was CES related or not. For a countertop ice tray that can make ice cubes in 90 seconds.
Oh, wow. 90 seconds. Wow. That right? Sounds like a reverse microwave. Yeah.
I didn't do any research on it. It is starred in my email to go look at later. But, well, we might be there. But the other thing that happened, and I know I'm a little biased, they're powering my wall behind me, but the stuff that Illuminescence is doing, they have teamed up with Razer. All of the Illuminescence stuff is now Chroma compatible, or will be next month, I think. So you'll be able to control them all through Chroma, which means being able to interact with a robust API, which means that theoretically my dream of changing the wall during the show as we change topics, and yes, Alante, I am fully aware, Alante, that it is still in CES colors. I forgot to change the wall before the show. He says, we'd be able to have the software that runs the show be able to change the colors, and during the pinch point it could be green, and when we get into gaming it would turn red. And I can do that now, hooray! Without a whole lot of work. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, we talked about a lot of cool stuff this year, and I was following along with what you guys were up to. You had a lot of interesting stuff going on too. But one more time, remind people of the website and everything to see all your CES stuff.
So to see all of our CES coverage and lots of other coverage, go to tomshardware.com, and you can find it all there. Well, as always, I think this year even more than normal, it was important to get coverage from Tom's Hardware and your sister sites and all of that, because even we weren't there. We get that opportunity to see some stuff that
normally we would have seen on the floor, but we couldn't this year. So I appreciate it even more than normal this year, Abram. And as always, I look forward to what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Loot Crate. Whether you're a gamer, anime fan, or pop culture aficionado, Loot Crate has got a crate for you. They curate a bundle of collectibles, apparel, figures, and more that you can't find anywhere else. Crates get delivered to your door. It is like getting an awesome birthday present from yourself every month. To learn more about the crates that are available and any deals that are going on, you can go to f5live.tv/Loot Crate. All right, so we've talked a lot over the last couple months, year or so in particular, about the chip shortages on products. Video cards have been heavy hit. Cars have been heavy hit. But so have the consoles. We've had some conversations on the show about that. Avram recommended a great tool, Hotstock, if you're looking for a console, which is how we got ours. But because of all of this, the two big companies, Sony and Microsoft, have taken very different approaches in 2022 to their stock shortages. So Microsoft, dating back to 2020 when they released the Series X and S hardware, they made the decision to completely abandon the old hardware. We didn't really know. We suspected that they had ended production a while back on the old hardware, and we got confirmation that yes. And in fact, in June of 2020, all but one Xbox One model ended production, and that just after the release of the new hardware, they ended the last remaining device. So anything that's out there is legitimately old stock. It is a year and a half past its manufacture date. And they did that specifically because they wanted to focus manufacturing efforts, resources, and time on manufacturing the new hardware. Now, Sony, this week, we find out, has taken a very different tact, and in fact will be producing an additional 1 million PlayStation 4s in 2022 in an attempt to deal with the hardware shortages. I assume they're looking for to sell a PS4 to more casual console gamers who aren't part of the ecosystem already and aren't looking for that PS5 upgrade. I don't know, but it sure seems to me, Avram, that if I go out right now and I were to buy a PlayStation 4 today, when developers inevitably stop releasing games for it, probably in fairly short order, I'd be pretty upset.
Yeah, I guess that's what remains to be seen, is how long developers are going to continue to support it. I mean, my understanding is that PS4 games will run on PS5, right? So if you make a PS4 game and somebody, you can say that it's PS4/PS5, right? So there's some incentive for them to keep making PS4 compatible games. And I mean, there's a lot of games that don't require the added horsepower of a PS5 or an Xbox Series X. I mean, if you're playing Minecraft, granted now there's RTX and ray tracing in Minecraft, but if you're playing regular Minecraft, like you do not need a PS5. You could do that fine on a PS4.
Sure.
You can even do that okay on a PS3. So, if you're playing, so a lot of the games that people enjoy are not necessarily do not necessarily require the horsepower of the new systems.
True.
What really remains to be seen is how long developers keep supporting them.
Right.
Obviously, there's a point at which developers stop. So you cannot. Nobody is making new PS3 games anymore.
Right.
Nobody is making new, you know, Xbox 360 games anymore. So there's
Although interestingly,
although
people are still making Super Nintendo games on cartridge
right because
today, but that's a whole different
but
weirdness.
it's probably it's probably because of just all of the nostalgia. But anyway, by the way, did you see 8-Bit Christmas? You got to see 8-Bit
No.
Christmas.
Okay.
Uh, it great, really fun movie on HBO Max. So, anyway, point point being, yeah, I think this is a problem, but I guess it depends on what people are willing to pay, what they're charging for it, because it might be an okay experience for some folks. I mean, $500 is a lot for a console.
Yeah.
So who's going to fill that niche? Who's going to fill that niche of like sub $300, sub $200? I mean, I don't know what they're charging for it, but who's going to fill that niche of inexpensive console? They're not filling it with a PS5, so
Yeah.
it's understandable.
And
Whereas the Xbox
interesting.
Series S fits
Keep
that
going.
niche a bit, right?
Absolutely, and that one's more easily available, just like the PS4. Because people might be wondering, well, why would they continue to produce the PS4? Aren't they still going to have hardware shortages? Well, because the PS4's chips are not
Different
as
hardware.
advanced, they're not as
Yeah.
difficult to procure right now. From the chat, I'm being reminded that several games that were announced as PS5 exclusives, Godfall and the Miles Morales content for the Spider-Man game, they were announced as PS5 exclusives, and the developers were forced to create PS4 backward ports for it because of the hardware shortages.
So it makes sense. I mean, if it's you or me and we're thinking about, oh, we want to be in the latest generation, we would say, oh, let's spend the $500. But for a lot of people, these older consoles are perfectly good.
Yeah.
They're they're perfectly good. So coincidentally, I had an Xbox One X sitting around. It's been passed around our company. Like, so I remember I was at, like, it's done a complete. I had one time I went to to the Microsoft conference, and Microsoft gave everybody an Xbox One. And I came back and I said, I have no use for this, and it's really not fair for me to keep it just to play with. So I gave it to Cherie, who was using it for game testing and was playing games on it. Eventually, she gave it to Andrew, who had who played with it for several years. Then he said to me, "Hey, I've got the new Xbox One X. I'm getting rid of this thing. Perhaps your son would like to play with it." So I got back the Xbox One that I got from Microsoft like many years ago. It was the original Xbox One, not.
That was the
And then
that was the one from Build.
right from Build, right, and then but I maybe used it a few times. My son just wasn't into it. He loves his Switch and he likes to play on PC. So a few weeks ago, I'm a member of a Facebook group where people give away stuff that they're no longer using, and a woman came on and said, like, I just got a new home and my kids, we have nothing for Christmas. Like, does anybody have anything? So I contacted her and we gave her a whole bunch of stuff. But one thing I gave them was like, hey, have the Xbox One. So now it's found another new home, and
That's awesome.
we gave it to this family. But anyway, it's thinking about it, like I don't feel like I gave them I could have given them that, or I could have given them my old PS3, which I'm also getting rid of, and I gave them that because it's like the graphics on that are still really pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. I use my one fairly frequently. I mean, I have a Series X as well, but I do still use the one. I've got multiple locations within the office to use them. But yeah, I mean the older hardware is great. My fear, when it comes to buying a brand new one, my fear is, if you're buying it, you don't quite understand what's happening. If you're a casual gamer, you don't understand what's happening. You may not understand that it is technically end of life, right? And then at some point, and there are some big games that were already supposed to not be available to the PS4, and we're only a year in, right? And there's going to be more and more of that over time. But the PS3 to PS4 transition was almost 3 years. So there are a couple of solid good years, and possibly more with all of the shortages. It's just people should be aware, right, of what's happening. Yes, you can go buy a brand new PS4. They're making a million additional ones, possibly not for every market, because the PlayStation 2 wasn't officially discontinued for Brazil until the PlayStation 4 came out, which I still find fascinating.
But if you have a PS2 game, you can't play it. It's supposedly you can play it on an original PS3,
first gen.
That's what I have, and I've tried it, and it didn't necessarily always work properly. So
it wasn't great. It was supposed to work, but it was never great. And there was an OS update at one point that kind of nerfed the feature.
Right. So it is tough if you have a game that you want to play, and not all games make it to the current generation. For example, I had 2 PS2 games that I absolutely loved. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters and Godzilla, I think, Save the Earth. I had like 2 Godzilla games, which were, the graphics were great. You could fight your friends as any of the Godzilla monsters, and like the graphics were fantastic. I love those games. That's why we got the PS2, was so that my wife and I could play that game. And like once we upgraded to PS3, it didn't quite work. And now there's like, those games are lost to time. You can't, you can't play them. So
absolutely. And I've got Microsoft's big pitch for the Xbox One was that there was going to be this huge backwards compatibility to the 360. It wasn't going to be everything, but it was going to be a lot of stuff, and they were constantly adding new things. I have 3 games, regular games, in my high profile, 2 of them, in my library that were never ported. They were never made available on the Xbox One. So I have my Xbox 360 for that. So yeah, there's definitely a place in the market for it. Certainly for a period of time, and seems like Sony recognizes that, and they're going to continue producing it, which is both interesting and certainly in this transition time understandable. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, and it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price right now, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. All right, a little bit of an update on a story we've been keeping our eye on. It's the Federal Trade Commission's antitrust suit against Facebook/Meta. When the initial suit was filed, the company was called Facebook, and obviously it's changed names since then. So the filing is a little interesting, back and forth. This week, a U.S. district judge has ironically dismissed Facebook's request for dismissal of the case. They have said that the FTC has pitched enough enough evidence in its filing that the case is at least valid and should be heard. This is the second time that this case has been put forth in this court in front of this judge. The first time the motion to dismiss was granted, but the judge suggested that the FTC, to use an old colloquialism, sharpen its pencil. He basically said that the way it was filed was poor. It did not provide enough information, but that they certainly had enough background information to suggest that they were right. So that's where we are now. Facebook also tried to argue that because the one of the members of the Federal Trade Commission, whose name has escaped my mind, the chair, Lena Khan, had been involved in cases with the company in her prosecuting days, that she should be recused, and the judge said, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. So it looks like this case is going to go forward. Their big argument is something that we've talked about on this show for like a decade now. In particular, it was the purchase of Instagram that raised their ears. They made the purchase during what was supposed to be their quiet period before their IPO. The SEC requests that companies kind of calm themselves before an IPO so that investors know what it is that they're buying into. And Facebook went and spent over $1 billion to buy Instagram. There had been talk at the time that it was over fear that Twitter might be interested in them. But Zuckerberg himself said later that that the company had feared that Instagram was going to implement features that was going to damage Facebook's position in the market, and that WhatsApp was the next thing that they were afraid of. So he kind of admitted that they were doing a buy and bury kind of a scheme, which is exactly what this case is about. So it's going to be interesting.
Did they bury them? I mean, they didn't really bury them. They're still.
But they've brought a lot of the features both into Facebook and started integrating stuff behind the scenes, right? Like Facebook and Instagram from the business manager. I can post to both of them with a single post, not share content between them like you used to be able to do with Instagram. You know, you go in, you post your picture, and today also share it on Facebook. There is one UI to post to both for businesses. The chat between WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook are all unified behind the scenes now. There's been a lot of, like, we're sucking things into Facebook, which the chat stuff is when the FTC really decided that they needed to act. Now, the judge has been very clear about the fact that, you know, this isn't a done deal. The court's ready to hear the case. I'm not saying that Facebook has done anything wrong, just that enough information has been presented to hear the case. So we don't currently have a timeline on when the hearing will start, but it will be happening at this point unless some settlement is made behind the scenes, and I can all but guarantee neither the FTC nor Facebook are interested in making a settlement. So,
yeah, what could the outcome possibly be? I mean, can the government force Facebook to sell Instagram again, or sell WhatsApp?
I don't know. I don't know what outcome they're looking for. When it comes to an antitrust suit, all kinds of things can come of it. You know, there was the attempt to split Microsoft up at one point. You know, in the '90s, or yeah. So that might be what they attempt here, is to force them to spin Instagram and or WhatsApp back off to their own things. I think that they will deal with, now that they've been given permission to have the case heard. I think now they're going to try and decide what it is that they're looking for. They've been really tight-lipped on it, on what outcome they're hoping for. They might also have been waiting to hear what the judge's response was to gauge what they thought they might be able to ask for in damages. So I don't know. It's definitely going to be an interesting thing to follow, because clearly these things take time, right? The Microsoft case went on seemingly for 100 years, and the Google Oracle case was, what, 10 and a half years? So, you know, big cases are not short-lived. We're just at the beginning of this, and we will definitely be keeping an eye on it as time goes on. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. You know you get free shipping, but you get a whole lot more as well. Free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, which is awesome, and a free subscription on Twitch to financially support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming. And of course, there are a whole lot more features than just that. To find out about some of our favorites, to get quick links to those features, as well as a 30-day free trial if you're not a member, you can go to f5live.tv/prime. All right, so the streaming wars seem to be expanding outside of just streaming services, Avram. We've been talking about this seemingly forever. Everybody wants to have a streaming service, and it seems like more and more people don't want linear television. The current target of this is the CW. The network, as it exists today, has been around for about 16 years. In 2006, UPN and the WB merged into a single network, C for CBS and W for Warner Brothers. But in that time, things have changed. CBS merged with Viacom to create a whole big company with a pretty strong focus on secondary content on Paramount Plus. Time Warner Brothers has, it seems like every week the structure of that is getting mixed up. It's currently the media arm of AT&T, but is likely to be part of Discovery in the near future. So what does that mean? Who knows? So these companies that currently own this network together are kind of looking to get out of it. They've got a couple of interested parties, but the one that for me is the most interesting is a company that you've almost certainly interacted with and had no idea, and have maybe not heard the name. It's a company called Nexstar, Nexstar. They own 199 local affiliates around the country. Here in the Tampa area, they own our NBC affiliate, but in a number of major markets, such as New York, where Avram is, LA, Dallas, Washington, D.C., they actually own the CW affiliates. But they also own two big brands. They own News Nation, which is not Newsmax. News Nation is the former WGN, which became a news network after they bought the station. And they also own The Hill, which is another news-focused online publication. And they're currently interested in the CW. But, I don't know. The big stuff on the CW is mostly DC-owned properties, right, Avram? So if Warner, that owns DC, sells its stake...
Yeah, this could be a real problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really sad about this because my wife and I watch a lot of those shows. So we love Batwoman. You know, we're a little bit behind on the other show on Flat. We are DVR, like we're about a little bit behind on Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. But you know, we watch all those shows, and then of course there is a brand for, like, there are shows that people say, hey, this is like a CW show. So like, yes, there's all these DC shows, of which there's 5 or 6 currently running, but then
with at least one more in development right now.
Right. But then besides that, there's just, you know, there are certain types of shows that are like, hey, this is a CW type of show. So like, actually Riverdale would also, I guess, count as a DC show because Archie Comics is made by DC. So
true.
So even more, but like, you know, you see certain shows, you're like, oh yeah, this feels like a CW show. And I mean, I admit I like the CW. I like their show, most of their shows. Most of the traditional television I still watch is CW. So I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to these shows. It's like I can foresee a situation where if the WB no longer, if Warner Brothers no longer has ownership, I should say the WB, if Warner Brothers no longer has ownership in the CW, then I can see them pulling their content, sort of like Marvel wasn't very happy with Netflix making Marvel shows. I mean, at first they were like, great, we can make some money licensing this to Netflix. And then, hey, wait a second, now we want to do our own thing. Well, we know WB is already doing its own thing. It's called HBO Max. But my guess is that they probably wouldn't bring... I mean, by the way, you can watch all the CW shows on HBO Max. So, and on Netflix. Like, Netflix gets them and HBO Max gets them. I think they both...
certain ones, new properties, will not be going to Netflix.
Right. So, anyway, I don't know. Like, would these shows continue? Now, I mean, ideally...
I think so. I think they'd go into HBO Max, personally.
I mean, because a lot of people are saying, well, some of these shows have been around. Maybe they'll just cancel them all. I don't know. I mean, I'd like them not to. I think it would be kind of cool if they took advantage of the fact that it was HBO Max and, you know, made it a little bit more adult and interesting. But I really enjoy those shows. So I hope they find a way to keep it going. Obviously, if they pull all those shows, the CW network doesn't have a lot of value.
Right.
I mean, I guess if you want to own affiliate stuff, it has value. But I mean, what programming are they going to show? Is Nexstar going to show if they can't show any of that stuff?
Exactly, and that's the question, right? What is the future for what is currently known as the CW? You know, when they bought WGN, nobody expected News Nation. I certainly didn't, and I watched that whole transition. I was not prepared for that odd transition of WGN, you know, that kind of grew its name on Bozo the Clown becoming a 24-hour news station.
Right.
Not expected. So they might have a plan, but, you know, the broadcast television is different than cable television, right? Because you've got FCC licenses, you've got all this stuff. Unless you have news, but they do have news because they have News Nation, right? I don't. They might have a plan, but it might come down to negotiations. You know, when Disney bought, I think what is now called Fox Studios, they didn't get the Fox network, but the Fox network still runs all of the old Fox Studios stuff, right? News Corp still owns the network, and ABC now owns the content, and things have continued 100% business as usual there. So it might be the same case here, just reversed, where the network is up for sale, but the content continues business as usual. We have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I were on the other hand, one might argue that as much as I enjoy the content, the ratings on these shows have never been very good.
The CW has not been profitable in over a decade.
So perhaps Nexstar will say, "Hey, this wasn't profitable anyway. We can just, we can just start over again." Although it begs the question, why even buy it? I mean, they already have all these networks. Couldn't they just pull out of being an affiliate and start their own content that way?
I don't know. I don't know what they're up to. This is a company that has been
the CW.
Almost certainly not.
Right.
I mean, unless they're keeping the CW content, maybe they get the ability to keep the license for the name. But almost certainly, that name would change seemingly immediately, because I think everybody knows that the C is for CBS and the W is for Warner. So, right. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting situation. We're also early days here. They haven't been talking terribly publicly about what's going on. But my guess is, if it's to the point where there's information out in the wild about who the bidders are, they're far enough into... Because apparently they've been considering this for 2 years. And they've been in negotiations they've been in talks, not necessarily negotiations, but talks for months. So that does mean they're further along than just, the original, Sprint wants to buy T-Mobile conversations that we had, where it was like somebody in a pink shirt showed up at Sprint's headquarters and everybody's like, oh my God, this is far enough along that they're saying we've been thinking about it for 2 years and we've been having conversations for months. So something might happen faster than I'm expecting. Who knows? But right now, it is definitely a big black box. Well, that is our show. Thank you to those of you who joined us live. We had a pretty active chat tonight. I appreciate it. If you didn't join us live and would like to in the future, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us, or you can find us on Twitch or YouTube. Those are your best places to go. And join us over there. You can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback. We'd love it. There was conversation about how this might affect the cinematic universe, which might or might not matter, since they do seem to have a firewall between the two right now. So there's lots of stuff going on, and the chat is a great place to give us your feedback. If you can't do that, that is okay. Plugkitslive.com/subscribe. All of our shows are there. All of our content is there, and you can find all of the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. Our CES interviews are being posted now. There's a ton of them coming. I believe 63 full interviews, plus some floor content, and our National Technology Day partnership, which was the coolest thing. I don't know if you got to see that, Abram. That was the coolest thing. The Thursday of CES was National Technology Day with our good friends over at the National Day calendar. and we got to do a partnership that day. We had 2 stages, 2 live studios back and forth. It was really cool. Plus our studio here. It's the first time we've ever done anything like it, and we're going to do more of it in the future. So all of that stuff is coming over the next probably 2.5 weeks. So check that out as well. And with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Abram.
And we will see you back next time. Ciao.